I used to want to be an astronaut, but at the time when I was a kid, I actually thought it was a day job and you'd go to like the moon or whatever and come back. So eventually, like I picked a more realistic one, and I did want to be a web developer.
So I was working part-time in a supermarket, working nights. The reason why it was part-time was because I didn't want to go full-time in something that I wasn't passionate about. I was still trying to chase my dreams, but I couldn't get my foot in the door. It kind of felt demoralising because I was in like £15,000 of student debt to learn skills at college for 4 years that I was struggling to find a place that would allow me to use those skills.
Getting into media, I couldn't do jobs for free. I couldn't afford to do jobs for free. I needed to be getting paid, but I didn't have enough experience to get paid. Just didn't know quite where to go, who to go to. No one, I guess, looked like me.
Dad, growing up, he's always worked in the scrap car game. My mum was a teaching assistant for a bit, and then she's just worked in supermarkets and shops. So yeah, I guess quite blue collar jobs. And I've met some people in the industry whose parents own a production company, and funnily enough, the first job they get is normally a runner in TV.
But one of the barriers was the fact that like I didn't have anyone to sort of like guide me or like help me.
It's notoriously hard to break into the media industry if you don't have an in, if you don't know someone.
As I kind of left college and was trying to get a professional creative job, not having kind of like in a way like a role model who you can look to. Yeah, being in South Bristol, you usually just go into a trade. And that's kind of what a lot of my friends did.
I just signed on looking for like a job that, like in web development, but I didn't really have anything to back me up. Didn't have any sort of skills or experience in it. Had my dad keeping on it, but he's like, you need to get like a proper job in something. And I was like, but I really want to do this thing.
I was very aware through all the work that we've been doing how difficult it was for young people from this area, from this postcode, to actually know how to even think about getting into the creative industries, let alone achieve that. And everywhere that I went around the city, there were things said like, oh, well, talent always rises to the top. And you're thinking, well, talent isn't going to rise to the top if it can't get a foot in the door. And so we're talking 2013, 12, 13. There was expected to be massive growth. It's very clear that there was an aspiration for there to be many more jobs in the creative and cultural industries.
And there was a lot of talk about inclusion, but actually there was very little action. When you looked at and dug into the kind of way that was being done, there was nothing really in this sector that was meaningful.
So the Ellipsis report was research that we undertook to explore the barriers for young people to enter the creative industries in Bristol.
So the Ellipsis report was called Entry-Level Employment in Bristol's Creative Industries Sector, which is rather wordy. This report really came out of, bluntly, some frustration. We don't employ anyone who we don't know, unless they've come to us or they've already worked on a project. The idea is somebody's going to do all the right things and have their CV. We know that's not how the world works. There are very particular networks. It's the same people who have access to money. I'm very middle class, very kind of entitled, actually, access to opportunities in media and in film and in all the kind of creative sector stuff. And part of this, I suppose, was actually getting to employers and talking to people and making visible the realities of that to young people that otherwise were being given information, and careers information particularly, that was just nonsense. I was invited to a number of meetings when the draft of this report came out, and I was asked to take out of this report various things because they weren't helpful. And when I said, what do you mean they're not helpful? I mean, they actually are telling people, they're telling people what's actually happening instead of the narrative you'd like to spin around it.
Training/workshop thing but you get paid while you do it. At the time I was like, what? That's like, it just sounds too good to be true almost.
It was essentially a kind of paid traineeship. It was the first time we'd done anything like this. It was really unique and new. It was kind of like trial by fire.
I remember this one. This is a day when I think it was the IBM guys came in and we had to pitch ideas to them of a project that we could make that would help the community. I wouldn't have been able to take part in it if I wasn't paid. I was working a minimum wage job at the time and it was 0 hours, so I could scale back and do this, but it meant that I could afford to take part in something that would better my career, and it has.
Being paid for it really just removed any barriers.
We planted the seeds of, well, look, if we gave you these skills in programming, if we gave you these skills in planning a creative and arts project, if we gave you these particular film, animation, whatever these skills are, and you put them together with these things that you want to do, what might come out? And there were some brilliant things. I mean, the living room has to be one of my most favourite projects in the whole 30 years that I've been here, you know.
What's going on in these pictures?
Straight away, just the memories of doing that one, the cardboard living room. It was our job to set them all up with sensors, and it was a touch operated. And we were trying to make it interactive for basically have a little play with and put their answers in. It was a fun, unique way of gathering information about the local area. The amount of work we all put into this project was absolutely mental. I used to love coming in.
A hard part about it was that we were really learning on the job, so we would, learn to do something and immediately, put into practice.
It was stressful because it was a real project and we really needed to do it. And we've got eight people that have never done this before. They've never made anything, like making an interactive installation where you chuck a brick at a window and then it records a result in a survey. Like, that's quite complicated.
There was a heavy focus on data, and I think at the time we didn't realise the importance of it.
So teaching the kind of technology skills that were in demand but not necessarily being taught in the mainstream.
And so the media centre was kind of ahead of the curve in terms of thinking about, okay, well, if we can train young people who are at the beginning of their careers in artistic disciplines, coding, but then also getting them to think about data, it was kind of setting them up for success in terms of having skills, or at least a way of thinking that was going to be relevant for years and years to come.
The skills I learned from the JDP with the computing and the coding definitely helped me out of quite a few of my future employment.
And at the time it felt quite cutting edge, really. And especially because it was made by people who just picked up the skills and done it all within 6 months as well. So yeah, it's something that I would show people quite a lot and say, I made this when I was like 18 and it was really cool.
Each one of the JDP projects was very much like that. It was like, we know you don't know what you're doing, but here's some training and now you're going to do it. But each and every time they stepped up to the plate and they really nailed it. It just goes to show that if you put your faith in someone and you believe in someone and you tell them that they can do something and you encourage them, equip them with the skills and the tools that they need to do a job, they'll do it.
I came back to the media centre and did a few projects with 8.
So 8 kind of naturally followed on from the junior digital producer project.
The second kind of job. And what do they need? They need to build their portfolio. They need to be supported to be freelancers. They need to be supported to do live projects. By us using some of our networks and our reputation to secure commissions, that would then be reinvested into those young people.
And we would use the budget that we got to pay the trainees, and then we would also pay a mentor who is kind of more experienced freelancer to kind of do one-on-one training. There was someone there that was going to be able to ensure that the quality of what we were delivering was going to meet the client's expectations, but at the same time it was an opportunity for them to get hands-on experience, and they were still real commissions.
I think it has a really big impact, the fact that they're live projects with live clients. It's just like a real powerful way to learn, because you're not like sat down and you're getting explained stuff to you. You can see it and you can learn like as it happens, and there's always somebody to ask questions to, and you can grab the camera. You could obviously do parts of it yourself, and also you might even run into small issues, which is great because then you can see how you work through those.
The tech guys who worked here, I remember them getting out of the storeroom and being like, okay, here's the camera, you can have a play with it. And I was like, whoa. If it wasn't for that moment there with 8 and being able to have access to that kit, I probably wouldn't have touched like a proper camera for another 5, 6, 7 years.
It was also good to kind of get a lot of help with like the prep work, so like help with your CV. We would have regular meetings, so you get to meet new people.
And I sort of ran that agency, and I would do a lot of one-on-one sessions with the trainees to kind of find out, well, what are you interested in and what do you want to develop your skills in? And we would do what we would call a skills mapping session.
How my career looked, it wasn't really a path, it was more of just a big wall because I was trying to break through and get into the industry, and it was just, I don't care what I do or how I do it, I just want to get in. And then once I'd kind of like broken in with 8 and I was like, okay, I'm using camera equipment, I'm going out on location, I'm doing stuff. What do I do now and how do I actually navigate this? So being able to have that mentoring where we'd sit down and then do those little roadmaps of our careers and how we'd plan to get there and figuring it out on a step-by-step basis was a really, it was a great experience.
I had quite a good first job interview where I was kind of showing them my portfolio and showing them the videos that I did when I was with 8. And for the second stage interview, they wanted me to go away and shoot a little film, like an advert. Because of my involvement with 8, I was able to go to the Norwest Media Centre and borrow their equipment which I didn't have access to. So that was obviously a massive help. And then when I returned a week later to the second job interview, they were really, really impressed with it. And then I got the job. It was a full-time creative job. After 5.5 years of that, I moved jobs again to become a video specialist for a really big educational technology company, which is brilliant.
So what do you do now? What's your job role now?
Junior production manager in mostly factual entertainment TV. I really, really love it. The best thing that I think I could have done at that time in my life, if I hadn't taken part in this course, I probably wouldn't be working in TV, honestly. It gave me an immense amount of confidence to move forward and pursue my dreams.
Before coming here, I was too scared to apply for work. I was too afraid to approach people. But then after working with the JDP program for a bit, that just boosted my confidence and just my ability to work in any environment.
So I now work as a multimedia producer, and it's my job to go out and film short documentaries in the corporate sector. I mean, it just means a lot to me. It makes me very proud that I was involved in 8 and community projects, and it all started here in Norwest Media Centre.
Because it really just allowed me to get my foot on the door in the industry. I've now worked in for like 8, 9 years. I don't know where I'd be without it.
I don't think I'd have my career if I didn't do the program, because I wouldn't have thought being a web developer is something I could actually do until I did.
So organisations, I suppose, like the Media Centre, are able to work flexibly, and they're able to move and to meet people where they are and to work with them in a way that is about them.
You know, careers in the sort of creative area shouldn't just be shelved off to sort of people who are, you know, who are able to take a year's or an internship somewhere where you're not being paid and you can't support yourself.
It's just about fairness. It's not fair that only people who have certain advantages should get certain roles.
The whole point of the arts is self-expression, and you can't have self-expression just from one particular group of people. It needs to be self-expression from the population as a whole.
Diversity is so important in the creative sector. You just need to see more representation so you feel like I belong here and I can do this.
It was one of the proudest things I think I've ever done, to be able to know that I've made like such a big difference in people's lives. I think that's testament to what the Media Centre's mission is, and it's kind of hard to talk about it because it sounds so complicated, like all of these various projects and all of the ambition. It's so big. What it boils down to is just making sure that everyone has a fair shot at chasing their dreams.